California Governor Gavin Newsom is now calling his city's homeless encampments unacceptable, which is odd since he's the guy who, made them acceptable, turning sidewalks into red carpet events for drug addicts, thieves, and unemployed CNN anchors. On Monday, he urged cities to ban the camps from sidewalks, parks, and other public areas. So after years of denying the problem, he's now pretending to fix it, which is like putting on a condom as you're leaving a whorehouse.
Greg Gutfeld just torched Gavin Newsom's polished image, leaving behind only smoke, arrogance, and a frozen grin. In a takedown so fierce it rattled liberal strongholds, Gutfeld ripped through Newsom's hypocrisy, mocked his policies, and exposed him as a governor, stunned in the blaze of a primetime monologue. This wasn't a roast, it was a political wrecking ball, and Newsom never saw it coming. Welcome to Gutfeld, fully unleashed.
So Newsom is fed up with tent cities, the crime, the urban decay? No, he's not mad about that stuff. He's mad you noticed. It's like a criminal telling a jury he's sorry he robbed 25 banks when he's just sorry he got caught on the 26th. Because this isn't some spontaneous crisis. It's a man-made disaster like Chernobyl or Fox and Friends.
It started like any other night on Gutfeld's stage. Bright lights blazing, a coffee mug in hand, and that sly grin curling on his face like a blade ready to cut. But this wasn't routine, and it wasn't the usual mix of clever jokes or lighthearted jabs. Tonight, Greg Gutfeld was in combat mode. His target, California's polished political prince, Gavin Newsom, the man whose perfect hair campaigns harder than he does, and who struts through press events as if every podium were a runway for a glossy cover shoot.
Took common sense as his high ground.
Right.
There's no place outside of it.
That's right.
And so they're stuck in this horrible, horrible place, much like you, Jamie, and your life. As California falls apart, it must remind you somewhat of your own personal life.
Yeah. Sometimes I look at footage of California and I go, oh, look how much better it is than my life.
If you're hooked on this takedown, hit subscribe, because standing in Gutfeld's line of fire was the ultimate billboard of progressive perfection. Or at least that's the part Gavin Newsom loves to play. But beneath the glossy shell lies a mountain of failures piled as high as unpaid tickets. And Gutfeld, he didn't just point them out, he blew them apart. With the precision of a late-night comic done with phony theatrics, he shredded Newsom's image like a discarded Hollywood script. Flashy, overhyped, and desperate for a rewrite. Let's rewind. Newsom has coasted for years on his golden boy glow within the left.
So why do I keep bringing up Gavin? Well, other than my respect for his work in American Psycho, he's starting to distance himself from his party's worst ideas. Newsom, a guy who hates fossil fuels but could still bring down the price of gas by wringing out his hair, once proclaimed that his state would be a sanctuary to all who seek it. Then people actually came.
He beams a smile fit for a toothpaste ad, tosses around buzzwords like he's headlining a TED Talk, and struts as if California were a flawless paradise crafted by his own hands. But behind the staged briefings and glittering dinners, the reality outside the governor's mansion has collapsed into chaos. And Greg Gutfeld, he wasn't letting that fantasy go unchecked. The moment he hit the stage, the energy shifted. You could feel it. No warm-up, no soft landing, just a brutal wave of truths sharp enough to slice straight through Newsom's carefully guarded ego.
You conflate order with authoritarianism, you get chaos and destruction. So if restoring order is evil, then the Dems are now the party of disorder. Turns out the only system they had was wokeism, and it rotted any basic principles the party had to begin with. Which is why, like Gavin himself, they're left looking at 2028's hopes going up in flames. And this time, no one is going to help them put it out.
Gutfeld started by peeling off the glossy coating, exposing the rot festering underneath. California, the so-called model Newsom flaunts as proof of progress, now looks like a state sinking under its own weight. Streets have become sprawling tent cities, while taxes climb so high that Elon Musk practically sprouted wings and bolted for Texas. And when it came to crime, Gutfeld didn't need to exaggerate. The truth was already damning. Smash and grabs have turned shopfronts into shattered displays, and carjackings are nearly as common as ordering an Uber. Yet somehow, through all the chaos, Newsom still clings to his golden fairy tale.
Problem is his track record, his performance as mayor, as lieutenant governor and governor. And your analogies are great. I think mine are better. And just hold on. And here's why. He shows up at the fires and says, who the hell caused this? I'm going to crack down on the people responsible. He sees the homeless encampments blocking the sidewalks and said, you guys clean that up. He started it. He spent $3 billion to fix it. And his opening words in 2020 when he got the job is a disgrace. The richest state in the country and the richest nation of the world has a homeless problem. I will fix it. He spends $1 billion when it's not fixed. He blames the mayors, and he also forced the movie industry and Silicon Valley out of the best state in the country by high taxes. I've never seen someone such a bad performance, but yet I think he's the front runner to get the nomination for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They got nobody else. Sherrod, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yet somehow, Newsom still managed to lecture other states, preaching about morality, freedom, and leadership as though he were America's guiding light. That's when Gutfeld turned up the heat. This wasn't mere hypocrisy, it was polished theater. And Newsom, he was the overpaid actor stumbling over his script. Gutfeld laid it out perfectly. A governor wagging his finger at Florida over book bans, while students in his own state failed to read at grade level, condemning Texas for abortion laws while overseeing streets buried in fentanyl, filth, and forgotten lives. The irony cracked so loudly the audience could feel it, laughter rising as Gutfeld struck, not with rage, but with razor-sharp sarcasm that pierced deeper than fury ever could. And then came the finale, Newsom's stage, his spotlight, his supposed moment to shine.
So last week, Newsom said he hopes the conservative Supreme Court will overturn the current law that bans his state from removing out-of-control homeless encampments. Imagine that. Well, what did you expect, Gavin? That the sanctuary seekers were going to show up in Winnebagos? Once again, another example of a high-profile lib using his big mouth to write a check his ass can't cash. Last year, after the Texas Governor Abbott ordered that parents of transitioning children should face criminal investigation, Newsom then tweeted this: trans kids and their families should be celebrated, not targeted by the state. They are heroes. And so to fearful families in Texas right now, California's door is always open to you.
With that sly grin, Gutfeld sketched a brutal picture. California's middle class was vanishing faster than a drop of water in the desert. Small businesses were locking their doors for good, while Hollywood elites and Silicon Valley moguls toasted champagne behind their gates. And there was Gavin, still smiling, still flawless, hair sculpted to perfection, as if the hardship around him was just background scenery for his next glossy campaign ad. But Gutfeld wasn't chasing laughs. He came armed with a brutal truth. Newsom, for all his staged photo ops and polished sound bites, wasn't just flawed, he was driving people out. Families weren't leaving by choice, but by necessity. Proud businesses packed up, desperate to escape a state that taxed them for the crime of surviving. Even lifelong residents were left asking, how did California fall this far?
What do you think about Gavin Newsom? What's going on there?
I don't know. I don't know how they bump out Kamala out of VIP, put a white male in there and take her out. She's got too much of an ego to just step aside. She's going to go crazy if they try to do that.
Plus, she had a strong 2% support, so don't forget that.
Yeah, but she's waiting for that spot to just open for her, and then you put a white male in there.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to put. I mean, they did it to Bernie. They threw him under the bus two presidential ones in a row. They just gave him a couple extra houses in Vermont. Go, yeah, you got some extra money. But I don't know how they could do it with her.
Yeah, it'd be great if they threw her under the bus because she really likes buses. Remember?
And Gutfeld, never missing his stride, locked his sights on the man steering California's sinking ship. It was like watching a magic act unravel in reverse. Every illusion Newsom had crafted peeling away piece by piece. The economic growth he bragged about? Smoke and mirrors. His climate leadership? Hollow gestures wrapped in solar panels and flashy press releases. Even his supposed compassion. Nothing more than a performance, lasting only as long as the cameras stayed on. Then came the strike that silenced the room. Not rage, but clarity sharp enough to cut through steel. Gutfeld compared Newsom's California to a mansion gleaming with spotless windows and manicured lawns. But step inside and the walls stank of mold. The foundation cracked and the roof leaked despair. A glittering shell masking rot. He described it as a house held up by slogans. Catchy lines propping beams of collapsing policy. Shine masking the absence of solutions. That, he declared, was Gavin Newsom's California. A dazzling disaster wrapped in progressive paper. The audience gasped, then laughed. Not because he exaggerated, but because he voiced the truth many suspected. California wasn't a beacon, it was a warning.
Californians used to sell maps of celebrity homes, not landmines. Now, instead of sightseeing, tourists play hopscotch so their shoes don't get hepatitis. And when residents complain, they're called cruel. And now we're supposed to believe Gavin? Hell no. All the problems of the last decade were based on his and his party's lies.
The crowd wasn't laughing at a joke. They were laughing because they recognized the truth. It didn't need exaggeration, only the perfect delivery, and Gutfeld delivered it with the precision of a scalpel. Meanwhile, Gavin, whether lounging in a plush hotel suite or posing at another velvet-draped podium, was likely flashing that polished grin. Certain no late-night host could shake him, but he was wrong, dead wrong, because Gutfeld didn't just dent the armor. He split it open and marched through the ruins. This wasn't a debate, it was demolition. And from that rubble came something even more chilling, whispers of presidential ambition, the danger Gutfeld warned about all along. This wasn't just hypocrisy, and it wasn't just incompetence. It was the brazen plan to export California's chaos to the nation. The thought sent a chill. If California was the test lab, then Newsom was the lab-coated mad scientist, and America the next experiment. And Gutfeld? He wasn't about to let that nightmare slip by unchallenged.
Then came the national polling by overwhelming majorities. It turns out Americans don't favor minors transitioning. So last week, when a California law was proposed that judges in custody cases favor the parent who supports transitioning a child's new gender, Newsom killed that law quicker than a late-term abortion. Yeah, I know, huh? Now the left, being the left, was outraged, but they missed something, because now Newsom says he only vetoed it since it's already the law.
Gutfeld wasn't letting him off the hook. He closed with a deadpan mic drop only he could deliver. A sly smirk, a slow sip from his mug, and a glance at the camera that screamed, "We see you, Gavin," and no amount of gel can hide this disaster. What made it unforgettable wasn't just the laughs. It was the precision, the sting of truth, the way Gutfeld dismantled the glowing myth of Gavin Newsom with nothing but wit and unshakable facts. No theatrics, no shouting, no desk pounding, just sarcasm wielded like a scalpel, cutting clean as reality did the rest. That's what made it devastating. He led his audience straight into San Francisco's wasteland, where billionaires sidestep human waste en route to dinner, and businesses shudder not from competition, but from law and order collapsing into chaos. With every detail exposed, served with that sly grin, the image was undeniable. Gavin Newsom's California isn't a model. It's a warning sign flashing in neon.
Gavin ponders why Dems lost.
We lost. We lost the popular vote and we lost the electoral vote. We got crushed. And we need to be humble about that, and we need to have some grace, and we need to understand why. Was it because of the incumbency penalty? Was it because of inflation? Was it because of interest rates? Was it because of immigration? Was it because we were too, quote unquote, woke? Was it because of issues with Israel? Was it all of the above? I think we are going through that forensic. We need to understand at the same time, we also have to push back against the whitewaters and headwinds of the Trump administration.
Gutfeld locked in on the hypocrisy with razor precision. There was Gavin, imposing masks, lockdowns, and shuttering schools, churches, and small businesses, while he himself wined and dined maskless at the French Laundry, clinking glasses with the elite as if the rules applied only to the little people. Gutfeld didn't need to rage. He leaned into the absurdity, letting the crowd laugh at the injustice. The punchlines hit hard, not because they were jokes, but because they were undeniable truths everyone knew, yet so few dared to speak aloud. Then came the exodus. Families fleeing in droves, desperate for states where leaders didn't treat them like burdens. The laughter filled the room, but beneath it lingered a sobering reality. This was a migration born of failed leadership and misplaced priorities. And the brilliance of Gutfeld's strike? It wasn't just the facts. It was the ease with which he stripped away Newsom's mask, exposing the hollow face behind the act, all without even breaking a sweat.
Voters. He's the classic wolf in sheep's hair gel. Just watch him answer the tough questions.
Any other questions here?
Yes, Governor. California has a terrible homeless problem. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And I think it's a matter of perspective. Let's kind of flip the script on that, okay? Let's kind of put a new lens on that. I mean, you see a homeless man, I see an outdoorsman. We got a lot of natural habitat in this state, and I'm just so proud that so many people in California can take advantage of that. All right, next question.
He spoke of a man who lives for the camera, who scolds entire states with a wagging finger, and who builds a national image out of scripted outrage and carefully rehearsed indignation. Gavin Newsom, the walking billboard for style over substance, wasn't spared for a second. Behind the polish and the glossy hair, Gutfeld revealed the raw truth. A political mannequin, smooth lines carved for headlines, but no backbone to stand when reality strikes. He leaned hard into the absurdity of Newsom's ambitions, the not-so-secret whispers that this California prince is eyeing the White House. The sheer notion that a governor overseeing a state in freefall could step onto the national stage and attempt to sell that same chaos to the rest of America was pure comedy gold. And Gutfeld mined every bit of it, landing hit after hit with precision. But here's what made it sting. The comedy wasn't cruel, it was clear. It was exposure. Plain and sharp, the kind of humor that cuts deeper because it's undeniable. Every jab, every smirk, every perfectly timed pause carried the same devastating truth. This wasn't leadership, it was branding. And that brand was collapsing under the weight of its own lies, crumbling in real time before millions of viewers. Gutfeld didn't need to yell, he didn't need theatrics, he simply let reality do the wrecking. And yes, Greg Gutfeld dismantled Gavin Newsom, not with cheap insults, not with frothing rage, but with something far deadlier to a politician addicted to his own reflection. He wielded humor sharpened with irony, delivered with the confidence of someone who knows the truth doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be spoken. In a world propped up by spin, sound bites, and glossy optics, that kind of honesty doesn't just land, it detonates. That night, it wasn't just a win for Gutfeld, it was obliteration. A freight train of truth smashing through the carefully staged facade Newsom has built for years. And somewhere in California, Gavin Newsom is still reeling, still piecing together what hit him. Spoiler alert, it wasn't politics, it wasn't partisanship, it was reality itself. And Greg Gutfeld, he was the delivery man, carrying the truth in one hand and the wreckage of Gavin's image in the other.